comment ça va? Coucou means salut, or in other words, hi, hello in French, and it is informal. You can use it with your friends and with family, and I'm using it with you today if you don't mind. It also means peekaboo, coucou, and that's why I use it today also as a reference of my life now as a mom, because we play that a lot with my daughter. So today I really wanted to record a video to celebrate something special with you, because after it, that something is something I made for you. This is a big achievement for me. It's finally putting up together all this phonetic course that I have been working on for 2 years, on and off, because yeah, my daughter arrived among us in the meantime. So I wanted to celebrate by sharing a few tips and sharing a few stories related to pronunciation with you. I'm sure that whatever your reason to learn French, whatever your motivation is, I'm sure that you do not spend all that time and effort to learn a language just to not to have a communication fail in the end because of bad pronunciation. Sometimes the French speaker that you're talking to may not understand at all what you mean, but sometimes they can understand something else, and that may be even more problematic. Sometimes that can be embarrassing too. So that is why when you learn how to put sentences together and grammatically correct sentences together, you also need to learn to articulate it well. A few years ago, so that's a real story, one of my students, he bought a holiday house in French Normandy. I know, that's very lucky. And so countryside, and his neighbor was living on a farm, all right? And my student wanted to practice with me some situations for daily life, and in order to be able to start some small chats with the locals. And he told me that one of the questions he wanted to ask, was it okay to ask, how is your farm going, how is your farm doing? And I said, yeah, perfectly. And so he told me, so that would be, comment va votre femme? And I said, no, it's comment va votre ferme. If you said comment va votre femme, that is, how is your wife going? And my student like went like his face was he was like completely appalled by what he said, because that farmer had just recently lost his wife to cancer, so he got so worried about mixing up the pronunciations of ferme and farm. So there are two problems here. So the pronunciation of the sound a, the vowel a, and also the r sound, so for ferme, and the r sound is very difficult for English native English speakers, hence the similarity between femme and ferme. And so this student was so worried about making that mistake that every session, like at the start of the lesson, was like, wait, can we practice, like, is that okay, like that, comment va votre ferme? And he was like insisting until he got more confident saying it. I was like, yeah, that's fine. So yes, this could have been very, very embarrassing for him. Second mistake that is quite common, and that is because of a common difficulty pronouncing the French U among native English speakers, because native English doesn't have the U sound, is that instead of saying salut, you know, that means the same thing as coucou or hi, hello, you would tend to say salut, or yeah, like the U is not deep enough, the lip position is not right, and that's I can't tell you actually. It's an insult, right? So if you are insulting the person that you mean to greet, it can be a little bit offending. So be careful there with the U sound. a third very common mistake would be with this word, which in French is gare, because the letter A is pronounced A, as in Jessica. But because in English it is sometimes pronounced A, as in bake or make, it's very common that English students actually say gare. And for example, j'arrive à la gare à 2 heures. And they want to, gare actually means a train station, so they mean I'll arrive at the train station at 2 o'clock, but they actually say I'll arrive at the war at 2 o'clock. So the war, like First World War or Second World War. And that would be very, very confusing for a French person hearing this, because even if they understand English, even if they know English, there is just so little chance that they will actually make the connection between guerre meant for gare, because we wouldn't understand where that mistakes come from. So if you're traveling to France in the near or not so near after all future, keep that in mind. The train station is la gare. Now there are plenty of other examples, and if you have a situation, a similar situation that happened to you and that you would like to share with me, I would love to know about it. So a mispronunciation that led to a complete misunderstanding, you can just hit the reply button of this email, and I will receive it and I'll be happy to read your story. Now, as I told you, I'm launching very, very soon my phonetic course called How to Sound Like a Native French Speaker, and in the email I'm sharing the illustration, the design that has been made for this course. I worked on it with a Canadian illustrator, the one who had also done the cover for my ebook, How to Improve Your French Conversation Skills, and it was really fun to work with him. I loved how we fine-tuned the details together. And so in the speech bubbles, the illustration didn't start like that straight away. At the beginning there are just some vowels with accents on it, and I said that's very nice, but I would like the words in the speech bubbles reflecting a little bit the content of the course, as in words that may be a little bit challenging to pronounce, and that after you've taken the course you could be sure that you will be pronouncing right. So that was my little exercise for you. How many of these words were you able to read out loud properly by yourself, and did you find any more challenging than others? So we're going to see what these words were. The first is actually just the same question asked twice with just a different intonation, and in my next email, because that would take just too much time in this video, I will explain to you. I will come back on this question, and I will explain to you the difference in meaning, because changing the intonation will change the meaning of your intent. So the first question with the rising intonation will be et moi? And the second question with the falling intonation, et moi? So don't miss my next email for the meanings of this question. Now, do you know what this little hook under the C is called? It is the French cédille. It's called la cédille, and it makes the C looks a little bit like an S. Therefore, that's the S sound, as in leçon or français. Two difficulties here on the liaison, to link the two words together, and the spelling of that second word. There's a lot to say there. I explained how to pronounce that properly in the course. This would be mon œil, my eye, and this is an expression which I think in English you translate by my foot, like when you don't believe something, mon œil. Next, we have, I mentioned it in the mispronunciation between ferme and femme, for example, the r sound, so the French R, which is articulated there in the throat and not in the mouth. So it's really like a roar, and you can practice when you do some gargles, when you brush your teeth. Let's say. The only difference between these two words is just one extra dot on the I of maïs. So the second word is maïs, whereas the first word is mais. Maïs means corn, as in like popcorn, or the chickens are eating corn, and the second one, mais, is but. So all this difference just because of what we call le tréma, the two dots on the letter are called the tréma. The accents are a bit of a dreaded part in the French spelling for students, but not only for students, also sometimes for native speakers who have problems with their spelling skills. French accents can alter the pronunciation on when they are located above the letter E. So these letters will be sounded respectively. These letters will be sounded E and E, E and E. And the final speech bubble has these two words, which are blanc and blond. Blanc and blond. Do you hear the difference between the two? These two sounds, en and on, are nasal sounds. Again, French nasals are very specific to French language. There are actually three nasals: en, un, and on. So this is en and on, blanc and blond. And the final letter, the letter D, is not sounded. If you need help to understand why it's also part of this course. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you took some tips out of it. I also hope that you went well with your pronunciation of the words in the speech bubble. To finish, I will just read them out loud one last time to help tune your ear. Et moi? Et moi? Mon œil, mais, maïs, et, est, blanc, blond. See you in the next video. À bientôt. Au revoir and have a lovely day.